Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are fulfilling our promise to continue bringing you guys each and every playoff game over these weekends and weekdays. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at all four games on this Sunday slate here. We're going to kick things off with that Milwaukee game as they are headed back to Chicago for Game 4 here after putting the complete smackdown on the Bulls in Game 3, despite no Chris Middleton. So we do have plenty to look at today. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page to continue to follow along with us as we will be rolling through these NBA playoffs with you. Also bringing you those player props videos for each and every day that we do have game videos, as long as we can get those props in time for you guys. We don't currently have much up for you on the Sunday slate as we are recording this on Saturday, but we will do our best to follow up on those. Make sure you do stay on thelines.com as well, so you can check out that odds checker. Make sure you are shopping the lines to the best of your ability out there with our tools that we have up there for you guys. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for these playoff games. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, it starts at 1 o'clock Sunday with the Bucks minus 4.5 at Chicago after they just came out. Yeah, like you said, 30 points in the third quarter, just cruised to victory after losing Middleton there. Total's down. It's dropped every game of this series. It's down to 219 because the Bulls have the worst offensive rating in the playoffs down the stretch in the fourth quarter here. Understandable. Then we have Warriors also minus 4.5 at the Nuggets as they go for a sweep. Totals at 224.5 out in Denver. Then we have Miami minus 1.5 at Atlanta. No Kyle Lowry, almost certainly, though, in that Game 4. And that really hurt them down the stretch in Game 3. Totals 221, which is exactly what Game 3 ended at. And then the Suns, without Devin Booker, minus 2.5 at the Pelicans. Totals 217 out there for Game 4. Yeah, starting with the Bucks, though, I mean, it's hard to imagine the Bulls bouncing back decisively from this just utter smackdown. I mean, right now, from looking from above, it's like the Bucks just lapsed in concentration in Game 2. They let one slip. It's kind of like what people thought before the series, like, oh, they're going to be a little overconfident because they've just beaten this team. They've swept them in 3 straight regular seasons, I think, 3 or 4 straight regular seasons when Giannis is out there. So, yeah, they were a little overconfident. And Chicago did, played a bit out of their league in terms of shooting 12 for 25 from 3, nearly 50%. They're a terrible 3-point shooting team. Game 3, they went back to that 9 for 34. Bucks go back to just owning the paint, out rebounding them by 12, outscoring them in the paint by 16. Giannis, of course, leading the charge. He was a plus 36 in 29 minutes, didn't even have to do much lifting down the stretch. And then the Bucks defense, which was incredible last year and en route to a championship. That's how you win championships. 106 defensive rating. And as I mentioned, getting stronger as the game goes along. Now the Bulls have an 83 offensive rating in the fourth quarter of the series. Bucks not that much better at 88.6 with a 20% turnover rate. That's kind of a lapse in concentration again, I think. I think now that Middleton's down, I think it really woke them up, which I predicted correctly that they would win Game 3. I did not think they would win this big, and that's why we went so far under the total again, because the Bulls, like they did during the whole second half of the season, went under because they didn't score. But they certainly struggled to stop anybody. Like I said, they had 5. They went over in 4 of their last 5 at home with a 128 defensive rating. I don't think they'll be stopping the Bucks or Giannis from getting what he gets down low, but I'm steering clear of the total because of that. I think I just want to back the Bucks to win. I don't know if they're going to do it with points or with defense or with a combination of both. But yeah, the Bulls, one of the most predictable teams all season in terms of not beating top teams, in terms of going 9-28 straight up as underdogs, losing those games by 8 points per game versus 38-10 when they're favored. So, I mean, the Bucks really can load up on DeRozan. He was very quiet in his 32 minutes in Game 3, very quiet in Game 1. They lapsed on that in Game 2. But if they load up on him and asks the other Bulls to beat them from 3, I don't think Chicago has really the weapons to do that. So Bucks to win, and I think you can parlay that with some other things we like here later fall down on the slate.
Maybe multiple things. Yeah, I don't hate it. I think what's interesting here is the total, because the Bucks, they weren't the same team on defense all season long that they have now become, apparently. And that second, I think it's everything you're saying, man. Like, the first game wasn't an anomaly. The first game was one that we were all scared to bet on the Bucks. It was like a 10-point spread, and it was a game where we had all not overcorrected, but we'd gone too far in how much we were trashing the Bulls. I mean, they're not that bad. I mean, they're bad on defense relative to the NBA in general, sure, and they're better on offense than most NBA teams. And they're a team full of professionals. I mean, DeMar, Zach LaVine, and Vooch. It's not like it's a bunch of scrubs here, right? So there was a little bit too much trashing of them, a little bit of overvaluing the Bucks, who still hadn't shown much on defense. Then the Bulls come in and they play better defense in game one. The Bucks maintain their defense throughout. Game two was the anomaly. Game two was weird because we were all going, okay, I think the Bucks are now going to pay a little bit more attention, focus in after a crappy game one that they only won by 7 points. And really those 7 points also came from some crappy, free throw shooting or whatever down the end of the stretch that helped them get those bonus points at the end there. So it was even closer than 7 is kind of my point. We thought game two was going to come out and be a thrashing, and we thought it was going to be what game three was. And you said after game two, you go, apparently they did not have the attention of the Bucks yet. Now the Bulls do have the Bucks' attention. That was going into game three. That was obvious. Their defensive rating, in game three, it was helped out by a ton of bad shooting. By the Bulls, especially obviously DeMar and LaVine combining for 10 for 24 from the field, 22 from the field. So, I don't know where else to go at this point with the Bulls, because I think the Bucks do have what it takes at this point to hang with them on defense. And it really comes back to Brook Lopez rounding into form as well, as we saw in this one. He only had those 2 rebounds, but there was just too many times where you've got DeMar now with a secondary guy coming up to him at the top of the free throw line. And that was, I guess we'll give Bud a bit of kudos here, because this defense has been really, really good in this series. And it's been a large part of because of the rotations and the way that he's put guys in spots like I said, at the free throw line on the wing, taller guys like Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, even Wesley Matthews, guys that are coming up and standing there. Giannis still roaming, playing his free safety Ed Reed style defense. But you've got plenty of other guys that are pressing up, if you will, just to continue the NFL analogy, as cornerbacks do, and playing up. And there's room behind them underneath the basket. But who are you worried about? There's no high flyers, right? There's nobody coming in at this point. Derek Jones is only getting 14 minutes, and other than that, Pat Williams has had to play 30 to 35 minutes because this team is big. There's just too much size on Milwaukee for them to get Caruso, Kobe White, and say the likes of a Zach LaVine or Derek Jones on the floor at the same time. There's just not enough size to guard Milwaukee at that point, and they are kind of having to sell out for that, and that's why Pat Williams is getting those minutes, and that's why Milwaukee's still down. I would say down to 111. In this last game, which was actually an offensive outpouring for them, considering they failed to break 100 in the other 2 games. So this is one where I'm scared to take an over, even though it's all the way down now to 219. But I do think this is one where the Bucks aren't going to go back to that game 2 tomfoolery that they messed around with. It's all business now, and 4.5 points doesn't really scare me. But if you want to figure out a way to get that money line, go ahead. I'm not going to hit props for Giannis once again, just because he only needed to play 29 minutes. And why would, if they're going to be close to 50, points, rebounds, and assists combined in some combination thereof, why the hell would I take that right now when I don't even trust this game to be within single digits?
Right. That's why you're scared of the over. In general, I don't hate a tease to get to 215 and take the over, saying the Bulls might show some signs of life, but it's a pretty simple game plan for the Bucks, who have put this on blueprint for years now. Like, look, we're going to limit 3-point attempts from the guys who can shoot, and we're going to let everybody else shoot, and you put Giannis on one of them and let him roam. And Zach LaVine is basically the Bulls' only good 3-point shooter right now. He's 5 for 9 from deep in the last 2 games, but 5 for 8. But they've limited him to just 8 attempts. And if they continue to just say, like, stay attached to LaVine, let Caruso, let Williams, whatever, let them shoot. And they just have a blueprint to shut this team down. And then the Bulls on the other end, it's just how they give up points. especially at home. 8th most paint points, 7th worst from three. Also giving up 56% on 2-pointers. So really, it's just giving up everything. And they have no answers for Giannis, who's just averaging, crazy numbers against them. But you can't take his props, like you said. You just can't expect this game to be close necessarily. I mean, it's a pleasant surprise if you are going to take the over, but I mean, why not just take the Bucks? Why not just tease it down to a pick'em when it's at 4, and maybe tease the Warriors down to a pick'em too, or tease another game you like, or just take the Bucks to cover 4 points because they own this team.
Yeah, they do. And there's not much reason to think that, you're going to get a game much closer than that, to be honest, than 4.5 points. Maybe you figure out a money line as well. I think there's a couple games on Sunday that you might feel good about. But I would be, not necessarily scared, but I would be aware that, there's a world where the Bulls come back on offense to kind of the way they did in game 2. But it's going to take 3-point shooting. It's going to take Kobe White, Caruso, and Zach LaVine and some combination thereof of all three of those guys hitting. But like you said, there aren't enough guns really on that side of the ball for Milwaukee or for Chicago, where Milwaukee can just pick and choose the 3-point shooters they shut down, as there are not many of them. So, Nate, let's move on to the second game on this slate for Sunday. You mentioned those Warriors headed to Denver again. I'm sure they've stayed there, but they're in Denver for game 4. Game 3, it was exactly what you expected. Denver comes out swinging. They're backs against the wall. They're a caged animal, and they need to come out hard, and they do. Doesn't matter when you have 3 guys. When you have a splash trio, however you want to phrase it. We don't need to give them a name, y'all. By the way, it's fine. We can just have them be 2. The Splash Bros and Jordan Poole, whatever. But the point is they are filthy together, and with Draymond's just out there, dude, like a sniper, just picking people off because it's fish in a barrel for him. He's got 3 dudes that can hit from anywhere on the court and move off the ball, as well as any 3 players in the NBA right now off of each other, etc. There's a lot to like, and that's the thing that I'm gonna continue to focus on in this series. Is yes, I think Golden State's going to pull it out. It's either going to be 4 or 5, in my opinion, and it's going to continue to be an offensive showing for the Golden State Warriors, who at this point, this is almost as good of an offense as they had when KD was there.
Yeah, no, totally. They have a 127 offensive rating in this series, and they're averaging 122. Once again, love their team total at 114.5. They kind of struggled at times in that game 3 with Denver doing everything they could to slow them down. Still got to 118, still dominated the third in the fourth quarter, and went 18 for 40 from 3. Missed 10 free throws. I don't think that's happening again.
Why? That was weird.
But on the other side, I like Denver to counter the only way they know how, which is to score. And they won the rebounding battle by 14 and had 11 O-Rebs. And Jokic finally got going at home. Thing is, Golden State is still willing to put Draymond on an island with him, say whatever. If Joker gets 35, 40 points, he had 5 assists and 5 turnovers. He's averaging 5 assists in the series, not getting anybody else going because everybody else is dependent on him, frankly. I mean, Denver doesn't really have a guy who can get his own shot other than Joker. And so it's a pretty simple blueprint. I mean, Draymond said he felt like they didn't even play very well in game 3. And they can get this one. So, you look at Denver down the stretch at home. The key stat all season is that they're first in 3-point D on the road and 23rd at home. And we saw that with allowing the Dubs to shoot 45%. Not much you can do when there's 3 and P out there or whatever you want to nickname them. But they're at a 120 defensive rating at home after the All-Star break. Tons of overs in that span. 224 doesn't really scare you too much. I think it's even better if you tease it with the other game. We're talking about Bucks tease down or anything else you want to just get some safety or taking really either team total. I think Denver scores over 110.5 with their season on the line. I think the Dubs continue to score 115. And both are minus 115 for the over if you want to take either of those.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the reason I don't love an over in this game is there's already been internal strife, if you will, with those Nuggets They've had a few little sideline, huddles that made it onto a Bleacher Report social media post because somebody was yelling at somebody. This is the funniest part. They had a players only meeting, and they got out of the players only meeting after I believe it was after game 1, maybe it was game 2 or whatever. And a Denver reporter that I follow on Twitter asked Will Barton how the players meeting went. He goes, same bullshit. A lot of stuff was said. Who knows if anybody's going to follow up on it? It was like, oh, okay. So successful players only meeting then, huh? Sounds like you guys came out of that one better. Okay, great. So moving forward, I don't know why you wouldn't expect this game. I mean, the last point to add to that is in game 3, it was another demoralizing way to lose. I mean, when you're, it's kind of like if the Hawks had lost that game after, they come back, they put on a show, they're up double digits at the half. And if they had lost that game, I would just look at them and go, okay, they're done, because you come out, you do exactly what you need to do, and you still lose. And then you go, okay, so we don't have any bullets left in the chamber to fire because we don't know what else to do here, right? And that's where you're at now. You needed a game from Nikola where he had 37, but you also needed him to have like 12 assists on top of that 37, because he's got the ball in his hands the whole time, and there's no shot creators. That's just pure and simple. There's no shot creators for Denver right now. I love Will Barton. Like I said, he was the one with the quote talking about how this team has no more camaraderie or team chemistry of any kind at this point. They don't really seem to even like each other. And it's not like anybody's really coming in at this point to help out in terms of the ability to score without needing help, right? Their unassisted field goals have gone up in terms of their percentage of points that they score without getting an assist on them, because Joker's just, even if he does make that one pass, you've got Barton and Morris are really the only two guys, Monta Morris, the only two guys that I look at and go, okay, you can create your own shot. And both of them went 9 for 24 combined for 23 points in this last game. And it's now turned into a game where the Denver Nuggets bench was already thin. It was thin because, they're starting bench players. Will Barton is not a starter, and nor is Monta Morris, but they both need to start when Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are not in the game, right? And so now you're talking about taking two guys off of the bench, putting them in the starting lineup, depleting your bench. And it's not fair when you have Steph Curry coming off of the other team's bench. And that's why they got outscored 49-31 in bench points, is because Curry had 27. So it seems like a little bit of a skewed stat, but it's not. The point is that the Warriors are deep enough that they don't need to start Steph Curry, because they have Jordan Poole, who's Steph Curry light at this point, maybe Steph Curry medium light. So that means that you now have a stronger bench. If Poole came off the bench, if he comes off the starting lineup, it doesn't matter. The point is they're so much deeper now that when you find those minutes with Joker off the floor, it's even worse than it was in the regular season. When he's off the floor, he was a -10. When he was on it, they were a +10. Now we're talking the same exact numbers, but he's not even nearly a +10 when he's on the floor, right? So it's kind of lights out for Denver. I don't have any reason to feel good about them winning this game. If they do, Mazel Tov, I'll just bet the crap out of the Warriors in game 5, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right about the chemistry and just the thoughts of 1, 2, 3 Cancun, because they have those two guys who've been out all season, and they're planning for next season, which is what we said in the last game video. And they don't really win when they're expected not to. Same thing we just talked about with the Bulls. 12-19 straight up as dogs, 2-6 against the spread as home dogs, losing by 7 points per game. And Joker is exhausted. I mean, you talk about the Warriors' depth and what they can throw at him, not necessarily who they can defend him with, but what they can throw at the other end with all their different death lineup options here. Looney starts and plays 9 minutes, and then they quickly just go small. Otto Porter, Iggy, Bjelica, whoever they want, to just continue to put Joker in action where he has to jump out on 3-point shooters and get back and go back and forth and then do everything he has to do on offense too. It's amazing that he's still able to put up those numbers, but this game is only 36 hours later. It's Sunday afternoon, in Denver after a Friday night late game. So I don't think they're going to be very good on short rest. I guess maybe I'm talking myself off the over for the Nuggets because I am a little concerned that they could just pack it in. I don't think this is the type of team to become the first ever 3-0 deficit comeback, and maybe not even a team that's going to get one in the series.
100%, man. And look, the Dubs, you've talked about a couple of things here where you basically, without saying it, said Steve Kerr has been really, really great in this series as well. The way he's playing his lineups, playing Steph off the bench, the way he's defending Joker, and making the case of like, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science to go, there's nobody else on your team. So go ahead and score 37, and score an assist on 50 of your team's 111 points. I don't care. You're still only going to get 60 points outside of whatever it is that you do as one player. Yeah, we're likely going to keep you, under 110 points. And yeah, I would be terrified of a Nuggets over, because I think the sort of the chutzpah and the spark that they were going to bring to really like dig deep and pull out of this series, that came in game 3, and it was futile because of the fact that the Splash trio combined for 80 points. So I don't think there's any reason to think that they can't do that again. Maybe if there's any kind of DK specials out there, maybe all 3 Splash Bros to score 20, maybe all 3 to score 25. I'm not really scared of any of it. I think, the only thing that would scare me off a Golden State team total over is the fact that they don't really need to do much down the stretch, and they can play their bench. But even if they play their bench, it's still pretty good. And if Otto Porter and Nemanja Bjelica are out there with Jonathan Kuminga, who's an NBA future all-star, I'll still take their points. So actually, I'm just talking myself right back into their team total over no matter what, and them to win this game. All right, Nate, let's head back to the Eastern Conference. Game 3 here on this Sunday playoff slate. We've got the Heat. They are locked up now. No, I'm sorry. They're up 2-1 with those Hawks. In Atlanta, they did win both first 2 at home. Atlanta came back in game 3. I did hit that first half bet -1.5 for the Hawks. That was nice. And then, it kind of seemed like they were giving that back to the Heat there in the third quarter. And then fourth quarter, as I think what we're going to focus on in this game is an angle that we're looking at to definitely impact how we bet it, is Kyle Lowry, whether or not he plays. I believe he's still a game time decision. This is a 1.5 point spread here on the game in favor of the Heat once again. 221 total. The Hawks are just plus 105 on the money line there. So it seems like this is essentially a pick 'em, a little bit of value there on the Hawks. Probably if Lowry's not playing, that's when Trey seemed to go off in that fourth quarter when they lost Kyle Lowry, the Heat did. So how does that impact game 4 here? And does Atlanta lock this thing back up before we go back to Miami?
It's a toss-up, according to the line, and I can't believe Miami's the exact same spread as they were in Game 3 now that they're missing the spearhead of their defense and their most, calm veteran point guard out there. Jimmy did what he could with that added load, got us those 8 assists, almost got the win for plus 720. But he didn't shoot well because he's also playing point guard and he's trying to get his own shot from weird angles. And that was their last possession, was just a horrible shot. He went 8 for 20 from the field. Yeah, I would lean Hawks here with Lowry. I don't think he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play the rest of the series. He's like 36 years old and he has a hamstring strain. And Devin Booker's out 2 to 3 weeks with the same injury. So I think it's complete reset here. And I think you're looking at Heat in 6, which is plus 250, or Heat in 7, plus 380. Those are now interesting bets because Atlanta, when they have a decent matchup, they're money at home. They've now won 21 of their last 24 home games. They could easily win this one and also win game 6 if it comes to it and force this to 7. I don't really think they're going to win any games in Miami, even without Kyle Lowry. I think Miami is too tough, and they could still win this game by any means. This is not a locked in, confident bet in the Hawks, but it is definitely a word of caution taking the Heat in this situation without Lowry. They went 4-5 in their last 9 without Lowry. The defensive rating really spiked to 114, and 6 of those 9 games went over. So I am leaning towards an over here or teasing it down while we have been all over the under in previous ones because Trae Young was doing nothing with Kyle Lowry in his face. Well, he went for 14 points on 4 for 6 field goal in the second half because Lowry went out, including 10 points in the fourth quarter and the winner on a floater. He was a minus 15 in quarter 3 and a plus 18 in quarter 4. The Hawks have actually dominated the fourth quarter in the series, mostly because the previous 2 games they were just trying to claw back and make it a respectable loss. But in this series, they're shooting 54, 41, 92% with a 136 offensive rating and a 20.7 net rating in the fourth. And they were great at home in the fourth quarter all season. Like we said, they seem to find something with Okongwu. in locking down their interior defense a little bit. Miami doesn't score many paint points anyway, but he was really solid playing the final 15 minutes and keeping Miami out of the paint, where they really only had Hero and Jimmy pulling shots on their own, not a high assist rate, not much cooking for them. So I do lean towards the Hawks and more points because Lowry's out. Basically, maybe looking at the Hawks team total, while we did like under in the last game, this thing just kind of flips on its head when you take away the best perimeter defender really for Miami.
Yeah, I mean, perimeter. Yeah, it's definitely, you're giving a lot of credit to Kyle Lowry for sure, and he deserves a lot of it. I would say what he does
in this particular matchup.
No, I'm not even saying you're wrong. What I'm really saying is like you're giving him a lot of credit, and I want to clarify. I feel like you're giving him that credit because he's a veteran leader. Mm-hmm. He's a calming champion presence, right? Former champion presence on this team that knows how to not only get to the finals, but then obviously was a huge part of winning it. A lot of injuries for the Warriors, whatever. Great championship for the Raptors. Kyle Lowry's been there. He knows how to do it. He did guard a Trey a ton in game 2. That is actually when Trey did some of his work. In game 3 was a bit better for him. He did keep Trey to 0 for 2 shooting, guarding him for about 2 or 3 minutes in that game before he had to come out. So he was doing really well on Trey and keeping him to that really bad, plus minus, as you mentioned, in the third quarter. And then there's no question that Trey was ecstatic to have Kyle Lowry gone from the game, not draped all over him like he was a second jersey on Trey. And then he went off in the fourth for 10 points on a lot better shooting, got to the free throw line 3 times in that fourth quarter, which was really crucial for them. I'm not the guy to talk to about whether or not Trae Young's going to play well. I am a scarred Knicks fan. You've called me out on it before. I have to be fully transparent about it. I think Trae Young is the second coming of Michael Jordan with Julius Erving mixed in. So like, I'm not the guy. He scares the hell out of me. And I know that literally he could be 0 for 12 and the man going into the third or fourth quarter, and he's not going to stop shooting, and he's probably going to hit a bunch of those. So I'm scared to bet against him ever. I do like an over a bit more in this one. Because I do once it's the Hawks at home. So, that's something to like. 121, which is what they hit in game 3 here, does scare me a bit more. I would want to tease that down if I was going to hit it. I'm going to be fully honest with you. I'm not betting this game. Like, there's no point in me trying to pretend like I'm telling you guys I feel great about any of these bets, because I think what it comes down to is a few wild cards. And I think there's been some sort of a few anomalies, especially in game 2 when Jimmy goes for 45. He's capable of it. But you saw what happened in game 3 when they really started to focus on Jimmy. In the first quarter, he went 4 for 7 and didn't see a single double team. In quarters 2 through 4, he saw a double team, and they increased it, whatever it was. I saw the stat from Kevin O'Connor. It was like 45% in quarters 2 through 4, that every time Jimmy got the ball, 45% of the time, he got a double team. So, so I think that's obviously what they're going to be looking to do and keep those points out of his hands, which means he does need to become a facilitator, which would lead you to think game theory wise, maybe you continue to hit those assists like you called super nicely. That would happen in game 3. It started sort of the inverse of what you predicted in game 3 in terms of the first quarter, where Jimmy was going off and not needing to dime up as much. Then that changes when they start double teaming him. So I think that's the game plan again. You saw it work for them in the quarters that they won 2 through 4 there for the Hawks, just getting out to a bad start. And I think you can consider those numbers to happen again. I think this is a Trae Young game that, like I said, I would be scared of. It doesn't mean the Hawks win necessarily, but it means that this game is close. That 1.5 point spread, it's probably correct. And that would be the only reason that if I was going to bet this game, it would be strictly to, where am I finding EV? And that's just purely in the fact that I think it's a straight pick 'em, and you're getting better value on the Hawks in this one.
Yeah, it's not just Trey scoring, though. Now he's going to get a lot of PJ Tucker on him, which means he can get by him and then force help. And Miami's defending him as a unit. You're right. It's not just Kyle Lowry, but he was the tip of that spear. And that's what you saw in the fourth quarter, is with Trey getting by his guy. Then Bogey gets wide open shots. Herter had open shots too. He didn't hit them. But yeah, they shot 5-11 from 3 as a team. That was the whole comeback late. Like I said, they're hitting 4.5 threes at 41% in the fourth quarter this series. They're getting really good looks down the stretch when Miami's veterans are not able to keep Trey in front of him when he finally starts to get going with that dribble penetration. Yeah, I mean, we're not saying like this is a Trey blow-up game and you should bet him. We're just saying he's going to be a little more effective than we were used to in those first two games. And that's why we like Atlanta to keep scoring and probably get us over. I mean, you look at the recent splits, Miami scores 4 more points per game on the road since the start of March. Atlanta scores 7 more points per game at home since the All-Star break.
Exactly.
Miami shoots 41% from 3 in that span. On the road, way better there. More assists too. Max Strus doing a nice job on offense. He's going to be playing more for sure.
Yep.
And with Hero, Duncan, Max Strus alongside Jimmy and Bam, that's a lot of weaponry for them to be able to keep pace in the scoring department. If Atlanta continues to find a little bit more success as they crack that defense and the way that they're guarding Trae Young.
Yeah, for sure. And Tyler Hero, Max Strus started to get it going in game 3 as well. I don't think the Hawks mind that nearly as much as they do mind another, either 45-point output from Jimmy or a triple-double style performance from Jimmy where he's just completely controlling the game. The point is they don't want the ball in his hands. If he's got the ball in his hands, and as we've been saying, he can just walk into the paint without any real defensive presence down low, with Okongwu being a lot better against certain bigs on the Heat, but he hasn't been much of a help defense presence. They really needed to double Jimmy up top to get that ball out of his hands. So, Nate, let's finish off this Sunday slate here. We've got our 4th game. Back to the Western Conference we go in a series that's much more fun than we originally thought. Even that game 4, once game 3, the Suns pulled it out here in this Suns Pelicans series. Suns now up 2-1, winning that game 3 without Book, which is the biggest, talking point right now of the series. But there's a few more things to talk about after that game 3. And we saw the Suns really, control things. A lot of great minutes from guys like Mikal Bridges. Campaign gave them a big lift. Landry Shamet gave them a big lift in a lot of ways, getting 27 minutes in that game. So some guys that you definitely, we've talked about, it's a deep bench, man. They're a deep team. They're now minus 650 to win this series is Phoenix, and you get plus 480 for New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans just got 64 combined points from CJ and Brandon Ingram and weren't able to pull this one out. So it does leave you feeling like, what do they have that they didn't really already try to use in terms of a game plan or a wild card up their sleeve? But I'm not necessarily counting them out, man. It was a close game. They showed a lot of spunk coming back after, the Suns would build a couple double-digit leads. They owned that third quarter, and then Chris Paul does what he does in the 4th. But there's still the reason to believe that the Pellies could win this game, no?
Definitely. And I think the way to bet this series is not to take either line, but to take the Suns in 6 at plus 230 or the Suns in 7 at plus 350. It's the same kind of theory we're using for that Heat-Hawks series. I think the Pelicans are going to get at least one more game here, one way or another, because the margin for error is pretty slim for the Suns without Booker. I mean, they are still deep enough and good enough, and they owned the paint in game 3. I'm definitely leaning towards betting them and them winning again, for sure. When you shoot 4 for 26 from 3 and still win the game, that's incredible. That almost cannot happen in any situation because they shot 66% inside the arc, because Chris Paul went off for 19 points in the 4th quarter for the second time this series. Also continued his insane assist numbers against this Pelicans defense. And Ayton, who we thought, was not scoring against Joval, has just owned this matchup lately. He now has a 139 offensive rating in the series. And Joval had just 6 points on 1 for 5 field goal shooting, couldn't really stay on the floor. Jackson Hayes got ejected, which is going to help the Suns, in terms of their ability to exploit that.
Help JaVale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And because JaVale was just owning Jackson Hayes as well. And Bridges, the last 2 games after being quiet in game 1, he has a 133 offensive rating. Those guys are just playing off Paul beautifully. He is the maestro who sets it all up. I don't think we're betting against Chris Paul, which is why I really like the 4th quarter numbers. Again, I think we talked about it in this last game that if it's angling towards the under, live bet that over in this game, because the Suns are so money in the 4th quarter, and the Pelicans have been so money too. These teams actually both lead the playoffs with an exact same 137 offensive rating in the 4th quarter, which is insane that they're dead even in that fourth. Tough to pick a winner when that's happening. But the Pels in their last two fourth quarters are shooting 50% from three and 61% from the field. A lot of that is just in the comeback effort. You saw like CJ right down to the wire hitting threes, even though they were down 7 and those threes didn't matter. They certainly matter if you're betting the over. And at 217, it is pretty low.
Yes.
I think you can take that over pregame, but I think it's even better to take it during the game. Yeah, for sure.
No, I feel you. I was watching that game last night, and it's interesting because there was a point in the third quarter, and this is just some live betting, real intricacies, but like, because I agree with what you're saying, because if you look at the offensive ratings for both of these teams in that fourth quarter, it was, however you want to phrase it, bad defense, good offense. It was 143.5 offensive rating for the Suns, 139 offensive rating for the Pellies. So they're both playing really well. They just played it at a 92 pace is the problem. That's why I actually live bet an under in the third quarter. But I'm being really specific here because it was a point in the third quarter where both teams were just going back and forth, 3-3-3, or, CJ bucket at the top of the shot clock, right? Boom. And within 5 seconds. So the pace picked up over the course of a 4 or 5 minute span. And I was just really into the game and watching it because it was the third quarter when the Pellies were coming back. I bet the under because they basically were valuing this at saying that at that point in the game with 3 minutes left in the third quarter at that point, that basically there was going to be 65 points scored in the fourth quarter was basically the live total that I was getting at the rate. It was because they thought that the pace was going to continue. We were now seeing an offensive game, blah, blah, blah. It was overvalued. So I like that under, but I think that in this game, especially as you come back here and realize that even if you're going to get a slower pace in that fourth quarter, just because Chris Paul is now playing the game exactly how he wants to, there's still going to be plenty of offense. And I don't trust the Suns right now. If Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are going to both be going off for, individual offensive ratings in the 120s or 130s, the Suns, it's not because the Suns aren't throwing combinations of Jay Crowder, Torrey Craig, and Mikal Bridges at them, three of the best wing defenders in the league. And they're still doing what they want, getting to their spots. Kudos to Willie Green for getting his guys to their spots. But I do think that the value in a total is better live than it is at the start of this game. If I'm going to bet it at the start of this game, I am going over once again because of the efficiencies on offense that both of these teams are playing with, especially the Pellies when they are at home, and the Suns, regardless of where they are, playing with that same level of efficiency as well. But yeah, I'm not going to just go ahead and start, chasing Phoenix bets here just because I think they're going to win. Outside of, I'm not going to chase the line, I should say. I feel good taking a Suns money line here, but not nearly as good as I do of just betting that total more so because this is a game 4 where Pellies are coming out for their lives, which is why, like what you were saying a minute ago, I like offense because that's where their strength is, and that's what they're going to have to rely upon in terms of New Orleans. Yeah,
and you can rely on Chris Paul having a high usage rate. It is only 25%, surprisingly, in the first game without Booker, but if you took a usage rate plus assist rate, it's through the roof. I mean, the ball is in his hands all the time, and he played 40 minutes. Went 1 for 6 from 3, which I think you could expect some of those to fall too. I mean, he still cruised past his props, which we loved at 32.5 points assists. Actually, throughout that DK special, 25 assists, 25 points, 14 assists for plus 650, I think. And he just got there with the assists. Keep an eye out for those type of specials. I think the threes are still a good bet for him as he will look to keep the team in it with those. But yeah, the Pelicans much better on offense. At home, 5 points better, I believe, since March 1st, and basically in the CJ era, a very reliable home team. Yeah, a 122 offensive rating since the start of March under CJ, and a 115 defensive rating. And, you're not facing offenses of the quality of this Suns team. If they go small, too, with more Larry Nance, less Joe Val, I think that benefits offense on both ends, despite the fact that Larry Nance is actually a better individual defender because he's quicker. Yeah. I just think it's going to speed up the pace a little bit and make it more of a spread game. And that's when Ayton goes off. And that's another guy to watch his props. Like I said, 26 and 17 first game without Book. I believe he averaged about 22 points without Book the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
He's got to do more, and he did. He stepped up. I guess a little bit too quick for Joval is why he got played off the floor.
Yeah, we were talking about Joval's matchup with DeAndre Ayton before the series started as well, and saying that, Joval had dominated the young guy, and DeAndre Ayton just sort of took another step. If he took a huge step last year in the playoffs and got his due credit for how good he is already in his young career, he's taken another step because he just battled another demon, which was how bad he played against Joval, who was averaging like 17 boards a game against him in their previous 5 matchups before this series started. And now it's Ayton's series. And it doesn't matter if you put somebody smaller on Ayton, who's a little bit faster like Nance. He's athletic as hell. He's very fleet of foot, and is definitely a center that you can continue to think, has top 5 qualities, man. I think if he's not already a top 5 center, which I think he is, he's on his way to staying there in that list for a while, literally amongst the 2 best, right? And Joker and Embiid. Maybe he won't get to those levels, but at the same time, 3rd best center in the league for his career is not bad. So I would continue to look for his props as well, as I think he's sort of established himself against Joval in too many different ways, and this team in general. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. We're going to continue firing out these videos for you each and every day, and the weekends as well, as we continue on through these playoffs. So until we see you next, happy betting.